The night my son held my hand, and I realized I was not ready for what came next. Today, I have a story that's been heavy on my heart, and once you hear it, it might stay with you too. It was late. The kind of night where the house is quiet and the world feels still. And then, out of nowhere, my son reached for my hand. It was such a small gesture. But in that moment, something shifted. I felt it in my chest, an ache, a fear, a realization. I wasn't ready for what followed. I wasn't ready for what he said, what it meant, or what it would change between us forever. What happened next still haunts me. Stay with me because this isn't just a story. It's a moment that redefined everything I thought I understood about love, parenthood, and myself. It was just an ordinary night, or so I thought. The house was quiet, the lights dim, and I had finally exhaled after a long emotional day. I did not expect him to sit beside me on the couch, nor did I expect his hand to find mine. First, it felt innocent, comforting even. But something in the way he looked at me shifted the air between us. It was not just grief we were sharing anymore. It was something deeper, more confusing, and terrifyingly intimate. In that moment, I realized I was not prepared for the boundary he was about to cross. After my husband passed, the house began to feel like a museum. Every corner heavy with silence. Every photograph whispering memories I could no longer bear to hear. I had learned to function in fragments. My days were filled with routines that gave me purpose. Coffee at 7 o'clock, laundry by 10 o'clock, silence by 3. My son Michael tried to visit often, and his presence always lifted the weight, if only slightly. But grief has its own timetable, and it does not wait for permission to linger. That night, Michael brought along his best friend, Ryan, who had practically grown up in our home. He was always quiet as a teenager, respectful in a way that made him seem older than his years. I had not seen him in a long while, but when I opened the door and saw him standing beside my son, something about his presence pulled at me unexpectedly. He was no longer the lanky, shy boy I remembered. He had grown into his features, broad shoulders, dark stubble along his jawline, eyes that seemed to search for something unspoken. They came in laughing, trying to bring light into a house that had forgotten how to hold it. I played the part of the gracious hostess, pouring wine and setting out snacks like it mattered. It felt good to be needed again, even in small ways. When Michael got a call from work and had to leave suddenly, he asked if I could drop Ryan home later. I said yes without hesitation. The two of us sat in the living room after Michael left, surrounded by dim lighting and soft jazz humming through the speakers. Ryan offered to help clean up, but I waved him off. I had grown used to handling things on my own. Still, he lingered near the kitchen doorway, his gaze watching me more closely than I was used to. I tried to ignore the way it made my skin prickle. "You seem tired," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Have you been sleeping?" I gave him the same smile I gave everyone lately, the one that pretended everything was fine. "Sleep comes and goes," I replied. "Grief is unpredictable that way." He nodded, stepping closer with that quiet steadiness that always set him apart. "You do not have to go through all this alone." You know, I felt the sincerity in his voice like a soft wind against my chest, pressing into places I had locked away. The truth was, I was lonely in a way I had never admitted aloud. Not just for company, but for touch, for someone to look at me and truly see the woman beneath the mourning widow. "I know," I said quietly, "but sometimes it feels easier to just stay numb." He did not respond with words. He just sat beside me close enough that our arms brushed. His silence felt more intimate than any conversation. I became aware of how long it had been since anyone had sat beside me like this. I was painfully aware of my age, the lines time had gifted me, the grief that weighed in my posture, and yet I felt beautiful in that moment. We started talking about memories, my husband, their teenage years. I laughed at a story Ryan told about a prank they had played in high school, and the sound startled me. It had been so long since I had heard my own laughter. As the night grew quieter, the air between us grew heavier. He looked at me like I was not someone's mother, like I was not the woman who had once packed his school lunches. There was something different in his eyes now, something unspoken, but loud enough that I felt it all through me. I glanced at the clock. It was late. I should have gotten up and grabbed my keys. I should have created space. Instead, I stayed. "I never told you," he said after a long pause. "But I always admired how strong you were." "Strong?" I asked, almost laughing again. "I feel anything but." "No, not just now. Always. Even when I was younger, I saw it. You held your family together. Even when things were falling apart." His words landed deeper than I expected. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the hour. Or maybe it was just that I had not heard kindness spoken to me like that in a long time. I looked at him then, really looked, and for a moment I forgot the years between us. I forgot the history, the rules, the titles. I saw a man who cared, who remembered me not just as Michael's mom, but as a woman with a heart still beating beneath all the loss. That was when he reached out and took my hand. It was not aggressive. It was not even particularly bold, but it was intentional. His fingers slid over mine slowly, gently, like he was waiting for me to pull away. But I did not. I could not, because in that one touch I felt warmth, felt seen, felt alive. It was then that the questions began to flood me. What was this? What did it mean? Could I allow it to be anything? Was this comfort or something else entirely? I felt 1,000 answers bloom and wither in my chest, all in a single breath. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like years I whispered, "I do not know what to do." His voice was quiet, careful. "You do not have to decide anything tonight." And yet we both knew something had shifted, something that would not be undone with morning light. I sat there, my hand still cradled in his, my heart pounding so loud I wondered if he could hear it. Ryan's touch was not forceful. It was patient, steady, as if he understood the storm swirling inside me and was willing to wait until I was ready to step into it. 1,000 reasons to pull away flooded my mind. My age, my past, my son. But none of them felt strong enough to break the spell weaving itself between us. He did not rush me. He just stayed close, his thumb tracing slow, invisible circles against my skin. The simple intimacy of it nearly undid me. I realized then how long I had lived untouched, unseen, surviving rather than living. And now, sitting beside this man who once roamed my kitchen searching for snacks as a boy, I felt something reawakening inside me that I thought had died with my husband. I miss feeling close to someone, I admitted, my voice barely more than a whisper. It was a confession I had not even dared make to myself. Ryan squeezed my hand gently, as if promising that he heard every word I could not say out loud. "You deserve that closeness," he murmured. "You deserve everything you have been too afraid to want." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back. I had cried enough over loss. Tonight felt like it belonged to something else, something new and terrifying and beautiful. He shifted slightly, his knee brushing against mine, and suddenly the small space between us felt electric. Every part of me was hyper-aware of his nearness, of the warmth radiating from him, of the way his breathing synced with mine, like we were already sharing something deeper than words. He moved closer, pausing just long enough for me to pull away if I wanted. I did not. I tilted my face up, meeting his eyes, those deep searching eyes that asked for nothing, but offered everything. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to say no, but I found myself rising to meet him halfway. The kiss, when it came, was not urgent. It was tentative, filled with a kind of reverence that made my chest ache. His lips brushed mine softly, almost asking permission, and I answered by leaning into him, deepening the kiss with a hunger I had forgotten I could feel. I tasted warmth, patience, something that felt dangerously close to hope. When we finally parted, I stayed close, our foreheads resting together as we caught our breath. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb tracing the curve of my jawline with a tenderness that made me shiver. "I have thought about you more times than I should admit," he said, his voice. I laughed softly, a shaky, disbelieving sound. "You are too young to be thinking about women like me." He pulled back just enough to look at me fully. "It does not scare me. You are more beautiful than you have ever been." I had spent so long hiding behind grief and responsibility that I had forgotten what it felt like to be admired. Not for duty, not for endurance, but for the woman I still was beneath all of it. In Ryan's gaze, I saw none of the pity I had grown used to. Only desire, only respect. The rational part of me screamed for distance, for control. But another part, buried deep and starving, craved this connection more than it feared the consequences. Maybe we should slow down, I whispered. Though even as I said it, my body betrayed me by leaning closer again. Ryan smiled, a small, knowing smile that melted whatever resistance I had left. We can go as slow as you need, he promised. I do not want you to feel alone tonight. Something inside me broke at those words. I had been so strong for so long, so determined to carry the weight alone that the simple offer of shared loneliness felt like salvation. I nodded and he pulled me gently into his arms. We sat there like that for what felt like forever. His hands rubbing slow, soothing circles along my back, my head resting against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. It was the safest I had felt in years. When he finally pulled back, his eyes searched mine again, as if asking one final time if this was truly what I wanted. And it was. He stood and offered me his hand, and without hesitation I took it. He led me slowly down the hallway. The house bathed in a soft golden glow from the nightlights I kept on out of habit. Every step felt surreal, like I was walking into a new life, one I had not dared imagine before tonight. In my bedroom he paused again, giving me space to change my mind. I answered him with another kiss. This one deeper, more sure. He responded by holding me tighter, his hands tracing the curve of my waist, the dip of my spine, learning the landscape of a body that had carried sorrow, but had not forgotten how to feel pleasure. He undressed me with a patience that made my breath catch slowly, reverently, as if every inch of me was worthy of worship. I had never felt so seen, so cherished. When he finally peeled away the last layer, he stepped back, taking in the sight of me with an intensity that made me blush. "You are stunning," he said, voice thick with emotion. I reached for him then, needing to feel him to close the distance between us completely. As his hands found me again, every thought fell away. Every fear, every regret, every whispered protest. There was only sensation, only connection. We made love slowly, almost shyly at first, rediscovering the language of touch, of breath, of skin against skin. He was careful with me, attentive in a way that made every nerve ending come alive. He kissed every scar, every soft curve, as if they were holy. And I let myself believe for one night that I was worthy of such tenderness. When it was over, we lay tangled in the sheets, his arms wrapped around me, anchoring me in a world I had thought lost to me forever. I traced lazy patterns along his chest, feeling a peace I had not known in years. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Words felt unnecessary. Everything important had already been said in touches, in glances, in the way he held me like I was something precious. As I drifted towards sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. Maybe healing did not always come in the ways we expected. Sometimes it came quietly with a gentle hand and a heart willing to stay. And for the first time in so long I did not feel alone. The morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and warm, but the weight in my chest was anything but light. I stared at the ceiling, still nestled against Ryan's bare shoulder. And for a moment I allowed myself to pretend that nothing outside this room existed. But reality, as it always does, knocked louder with each passing second. I was a mother, a widow, a woman nearing 50, and the man whose arms I lay in was my son's best friend. The silence between us thickened, not uncomfortable, not regretful, but heavy with all the questions we had both avoided asking the night before. Ryan stirred beside me. He was awake, but he did not move. His arms stayed wrapped around me, steady, grounding. "You are overthinking," he murmured as if he could feel the storm inside my head. I turned to look at him. How could I not? My voice cracked. What we did, it felt right in the moment. It felt I paused, not knowing how to finish that sentence without losing my composure. Felt real. He finished for me, meeting my gaze. And it still does. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to hold on to that feeling, but I had lived long enough to know that reality did not always give space for what felt real, especially not when it came cloaked in complications. You are young, Ryan. You have your whole life ahead of you. You deserve someone who can grow with you, not someone who already carries a whole past. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair. Do not do that, he said softly. Do not shrink yourself into something unworthy just because of your age or your past. See you. Have always seen you. I blinked fast, trying to fight the sting in my eyes. He did not know how much I had buried beneath years of being strong. He did not know how long it had been since someone looked at me and saw a woman. Not a widow, not a mother, not a caretaker, but just me. And maybe that was what scared me the most. I pulled the sheet tighter around me and rose from the bed, pacing the room as if movement could untangle the thoughts knotted inside me. This is not just about us, I whispered. It is about my son, about the people in our lives. What happens when they find out? What happens when he looks at you and realizes you were with me? Ryan came up behind me and gently placed his hands on my shoulders. Then I will stand in front of him and take whatever comes, because last night was not a mistake. And I am not walking away from you just because it is easier to pretend it never happened. I turned to face him, my hands trembling. But what if I am not strong enough to go through that? What if I lose him, my son, because of this? The silence that followed was deafening. He stepped back, giving me space. His face was calm, but there was a flicker of sadness in his eyes. Then I will walk away if that is what you truly want. But I will do it knowing that I gave you my truth and that I meant every word I said last night. It broke something in me. His quiet willingness to hurt. His refusal to pressure. He was not trying to possess me. He was offering himself without demand. And that kind of love, however unexpected, was more terrifying than any judgment from the outside world. The rest of the morning passed in quiet conversation. We dressed in silence, not out of shame but reverence. There was no rush, no pretending, just two people carrying a secret too tender to name. When he left, he kissed me on the forehead, and I watched him walk away with a heart that felt both full and fragile. The hour stretched slowly after he left. I moved through my house like a ghost, touching the walls, the furniture, the photos on the shelves, trying to reconcile the woman I had been with the one I had become. The smell of his cologne lingered on my sheets, a memory that clung to the fabric and to my skin. I thought about my son, about the days when Ryan and he would sit at the kitchen table laughing over video games, their sneakers muddy from soccer practice. How did I end up here holding pieces of something forbidden but undeniable? And yet, I could not bring myself to regret it. That night, I sat alone on the back porch watching the stars. I wrapped myself in a blanket, trying to feel safe in the dark. Ryan's words echoed in my mind. You deserve everything you have been too afraid to want. Was it selfish to want to feel desired again? Was it wrong to seek comfort in the arms of someone who truly saw me? The tension was no longer between right and wrong. It was between fear and honesty, between hiding and living. And for the first time in a very long time, I did not want to hide. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. There was a quiet softness in my reflection that had not been there before, an unspoken acknowledgement that I had crossed a line I could never uncross. And yet I did not flinch from it. I ran my fingers through my hair and smoothed down my blouse, not to impress anyone, but because I felt alive again. For the first time since my husband's passing, I was not just surviving, I was feeling. Later that day, Ryan texted me, "Thinking of you. No pressure, just I am here." It was simple, gentle. It allowed space for fear and desire to coexist. I stared at the message, a smile forming without permission. I typed back, "I'm thinking of you too. And I'm not ready to walk away from what this could be." I knew the road ahead would not be easy. I would have to face my son, navigate judgment, and battle my own doubts. But love, I had come to understand, is rarely tidy. It often finds us in the most unexpected moments, wrapped in guilt and longing, asking only for the courage to choose it anyway. As I sat on the porch again that evening, Ryan's jacket still draped over the chair beside me, I felt the warmth of something new rising inside me. Not just hope, something braver. I was not who I had been yesterday. And maybe that was the most beautiful part of all. That night changed something in me. His small hand in mine felt like a quiet plea, a message louder than words, one that told me he needed more than I was prepared to give in that moment. And that realization, it broke me in ways I didn't expect. Looking back, I still ask myself, why wasn't I ready? Was it fear? Was it guilt? Or had I spent so much time trying to hold myself together that I didn't know how to be soft anymore? Some will say I should have been stronger. Others might say it's okay to admit when you're not. But here's the truth. Parenting doesn't come with a script. And sometimes the moments that look the smallest, like a child reaching for your hand, are the ones that demand the most from your heart. So what would you have done? Would you have embraced the moment, no questions asked? Or would you, like me, freeze? Unsure of what it really meant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about the hard stuff, the things we're afraid to admit. Follow me so I have more motivation to create meaningful stories like this. Or simply encourage me by pressing number 1 in the comments. Your support truly gives me the strength to keep going.